Our first guest today needs no introduction. Please welcome to the show for the third time, Mr. Robert Patterson. He is the author and blogger of the website set-jetter.com, and we are here kicking off the Halloween season in style with the Maestro. Welcome back to the show, Robert. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. It's another Set Jetter Saturday episode, which are my favorites to do, and I feel like we always get into so much, and I always, whenever I re-listen to the show, I always have so many more things that come up in my head that I wish we talked about. So they're great shows. So I really appreciate you coming back.
Oh yeah, because I think afterward, I think I told you I was like, oh, I forgot to talk about Carrie the musical, during our Carrie episode, and what they had of course the Broadway version in New York is just pretty famed for its kind of disaster. It closed after a couple nights. But then the Los Angeles theater brought it back. I think it was 2015, and they dropped some songs and added some songs, but it was an amazing performance, and that theater just went all out. The whole I call it the basement, but below the stage, they had like the Bates pig farm and buckets of blood, and they had Carrie's bedroom, and they had confessionals, and so they just literally went all out. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, you mentioned that after the show, and I can't believe they did all that with the blood and then the lights changing different colors at certain like points
Yeah,
with the
so
elements.
the for the stage play, or it's a musical app rather, and so of course they it was set up like a gymnasium, and then if you are in the lower four seats, there were four sets of bleachers that moved around depending on what was going on, and they would move you around. And anytime Carrie was using telekinesis, they would shake the
Oh my
your
gosh.
and I remember one of the most amazing things because some of the special effects were pretty good. I remember there was one parts where Carrie was singing and she was lifting different items in her bedroom, and I was like straining. I was like 5, 6 feet away, and I'm straining. I could not see the wires. I was trying to figure out how they did it. But the
Yeah,
best
how do they do that?
part of it was then I was able to look closer, and some stuff was coming up through the table, some stuff was on wires, and so it was just it was almost a theater in the round. It was like a three-quarter round, I guess you would say. That, but so a lot of it took place in the middle of the stage. So during the dance, you were right in the middle, like they were kids were dying right in front of you. It was just
Oh my
blood,
gosh, that's amazing.
and the so Billy is a little bit different because I was like, oh, how are they going to do all this? And so Billy Nolan, a rope came down and it kind of drew him up and hung him. And Chris, her death was probably the best. I was just I was flabbergasted because I was not expecting it. So she comes in after she kills Billy, and Carrie just does her telekinesis, and Chris kind of backflips up and over the audience outside of the proscenium, and she was gone.
Whoa.
She was on wires, and I didn't realize it at the time, and I just remember I was like slack jawed.
And it looks like the Matrix style of her like flipping over in the air.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, that's
But
amazing. Why don't they do that? Why don't they keep doing that?
I don't
This
know, and
musical.
so I don't know. I was so glad I went. I was just like, hopefully they would kind of bring it back. I don't know if it'd be that level of production again. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if they can do a Bronx Tale with Chaz Palminteri of a one-man play, we can do Carrie with
oh
the that. I mean, that's pretty amazing. I'm not knocking Bronx Tale, but like that Carrie, it sounds amazing. So the one in New York was awful.
yeah, so it was. They did workshops in London, and then they kept the same Carrie, and then Betty Buckley took over the role of Margaret White in New York, and I think it was only open 3 nights or 3 nights of previews, and it was just people didn't quite know what to do with it, and so there's some bad underground recordings out there. There's some videos as well, and actually they just did a
Oh
Carrie
yeah.
reunion about a month ago with Betty Buckley and all the cast to kind of talk about it again.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm glad you remember that. We brought that up because you mentioned that after the last show, and then I was like researching and looking into it. And that's pretty surreal that you got to see that in Los Angeles when during
So
its
so
run.
lucky, so lucky.
Was the time? Did you come out here just for that, or was the timing good where
I
you were
think it
already
was around
here?
Halloween. I think I was out there anyway, and I would have made a special a trip for that. So, and I think I might have shown you some pictures. I mean, the doors to the
Yeah.
theater all looked like the gym doors that the kids were trying to escape, and is crazy.
Talk about an investment too into the production. Like that.
Yeah,
That's what you want to see.
yeah.
You know, because
Which
you can
makes me
tell when
think
they.
that
What's that?
with Broadway closed, I don't know if they're ever going to put that much money into shows again. I don't. It, I don't know what's going to happen with Broadway being closed so long.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a long time before you see that kind of scale again. How do you do that safely? If you social distance in Broadway, you're losing a lot of money. Their whole thing is built on selling every seat for every show. It's like factored into the budget.
Yeah, it was a thin margin to begin with. So I think what
Oh
will
yeah.
happen is we'll go back to super simple plays and non-extravagant, non high dollar investment in different plays and musicals, and we'll just kind of start over again.
Yeah, that's a sad thing too to think about that industry because it was already not doing great. There are certain plays that bring in you know, ginormous amounts of money, but overall, like that's a struggling industry anyway. You really it's fight or flight a lot of times. But I do hope, you know, things turn around and we can get that going. Um, I want to bring this up. I know we want to maybe talk about Psycho. We were going to do that
Yep.
last week, and I'm sorry I had to cancel. I had an emergency with one of my pets, and but I want to bring up Children of the Corn because I know I'm looking at your page right now. This is actually one of the first entries I think I ever looked at on your website, and I really love this movie as a Stephen King purist. It's in the canon of things that I just love. If it wasn't Stephen King, I probably wouldn't like it as much. I'm a little partial, but I wanted to ask you in Children of the Corn because you got the sets on here, and this was filmed in Iowa.
Yeah, in about four different towns in Iowa, for the most part.
Okay, the main street was in Hornick, Iowa.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
mix the towns up sometimes too.
I mixed the state up last night. I was texting Robert. I said, "Yeah, they filmed in Indiana," and you're like, "It's Iowa." And I was like, "Yes, completely different state. It begins with an I, right?"
Typical West Coast person.
Yeah, just stupid, just dumb. It's filmed in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
No, it's filmed in Georgia. But I feel like this movie, which has the least favorable ratio of high synth music to children screaming, because you know they can never really get the sound right in a lot of these old movies because
Yeah.
they would just put a track over it and it wasn't properly mixed. So it starts out with a lot of like you know, synth music, and then it gets low. Sound isn't great in my opinion. But my question is to you about Children of the Corn. Um, what is your biggest flaw with this movie?
Um, I think
I, I can narrow it down if you want.
okay.
What is your biggest flaw plot wise with this film?
I guess as a Nebraskan, I was like, it was never quite that believable to me in some parts, but or why I can't remember. Do they try to get their way out of there, or they just they're invested in it? They bring that kid back, and they're not going to leave. I think.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Remember?
invested.
Yeah. Otherwise, most people would just hightail it out of there.
Right.
I think.
The thing that always bothered me the most about Children of the Corn is that the kids were able to murder the whole town. Okay, I get it. And by the time they get there, Linda Hamilton's character and uh, the guy that plays the actor, the lead
Peter.
character, Bert.
Yeah.
What's his name?
His real name is Peter. Is that right?
Oh, Peter Horner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
So they get there. What do you think the time lapse was by the time the murders happen and the time these people show up? Like 6 months, maybe?
It can't be much because those kids have not aged yet, and I think what you're probably getting at is nobody has noticed. This town
Exactly.
can't be in such a bubble that nobody else has noticed.
Exactly. It's a small town, but it's not a one horse town where there's like three people living there. There is a police department. There are stores, which means there are deliveries that have to take place, fuel deliveries, grocery deliveries, product deliveries. I'm sure all these people, a lot of them have relatives outside. There might be some bills not being paid. There could be uh, people passing through. I just find it so And I know that it ruins the whole plot line, but I just find it so like the only thing that really bothered me was that they just got away with this and like that was it. It just sat there. And their explanation was kind of like, well, we'll change the signs around the town to say like Gatlin's this way and
Yeah.
3 miles that way. But I just found like I don't know, it had to be no more than a few months, but
Yeah.
you would still have some kind of delivery driver notice
Somebody
something's not
pay
right.
attention, or like they haven't heard from somebody or something like that. Yeah.
Right, and the electrical grid, you would see that the power's not being used by, who's ever monitoring the electrical grid in that area. It's just I don't know. It just bothered me. And I know I'm looking into this too much. Do you think
Oh,
I'm out of line?
Now Hitchcock would call that. I think he called it the water cooler moments, where the next day, after you're seeing a film, you're like, wait a second, why didn't they do such and such? So at the time, you're just watching the film, you're enjoying it, and you're not thinking too much. But I think it's that he called it the water cooler moments, where the next day you start picking it apart, and you're like, why didn't Grandma notice that nobody was responding, or different things.
Yeah. And I know it's suspended belief and you just have to enjoy it for what it is and not nitpick because it is an enjoyable film in my opinion. And I do like the short story a lot, but I just always felt like I don't know, like they knocked out the police chief and wouldn't they know that there's some kind of medical facility close by that maybe
Yeah.
doctor I don't know.
And it was
Prescriptions.
1984. If it was 1954, there's
Right.
more isolation, at different times. Certainly, this I don't know even know how this would translate in 2020. Uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like it would have to be a microcosm of something smaller. Like maybe instead of a town being wiped out by kids, it would be like a school wiped, like they get rid of the teachers and they take over, something like that. I don't know, but I feel like the whole town thing would work better, like in the 50s.
yeah.
The you visited Children of the Corn. How long ago were you on these sets?
And actually, I visited a couple times. So one was probably 8 years ago or so, and then I went back a couple years ago with my little brother through Big Brothers Big Sisters. So he's a big horror fan. So we made a road trip up to
Oh,
kind of up the interstate to a few towns to check it out.
he's a big horror fan, and he has you as the big brother.
Yeah, just by luck. So we've been matched for
Whoa.
6 years, I think. So he's 16 now. So yeah, we just by luck we they made a good match there for sure.
That's amazing. That's good for him too. And cheers to you for doing that. That's incredible to do that. But to get you for that, that's like a win-win. It's not just somebody that's like, oh yeah, you like horror? Yeah, we can watch Scream. Yeah,
But
let's watch Scream. I mean, what better guy to have? Like the website and all the work that you do?
yeah, no. So he definitely enjoys it, and a lot of these movies are just way old school for him, obviously. So
Oh
he
yeah.
doesn't quite get the allure of kind of some of the movies, but they're still into Freddy and Jason. They kind of get some of the iconic characters. So I made him watch Children of the Corn before we went, so he had some reference to it.
What did he think about it? How did like kids these days like take seeing this for the first time?
They're gonna like. He's gonna. It's slow. Not enough is happening in these.
Yeah, and don't you- I never, and I'm not knocking on Children of the Corn. It is one of my favorite horror movies ever, and I do love the source. But the ending always bothered me because, spoiler alert, they defeat everything. They get rid of Malachi, get rid of Isaac, blow everything up, and then some girl tries to attack Bert, and he knocks her out cold. And then he's like, "Well, I guess we'll just hightail it out of here." And
Time
then
to go. Yeah.
all of a sudden it says the end,
Yeah.
and you're like, that was very forced. Did you lose the tape, the film, and go, just end it here?
Sometimes you feel like they've run out of money, and
Yeah.
and for sure it's like how do you, and obviously the special effects are, they kind of fizzle when, but
Oh
it,
yeah.
it goes back to like He Who Walks Behind the Rose. It's much scarier when you don't, rustling corn and sounds are much scarier than when you actually see a animated thing. That's not scary. The thought that something's moving in the corn is scary, and
Yes.
I think that's kind of one of the, uh, it goes back to Jaws and everything, that the less you see is usually better.
Less is more. The house where the two children were like hiding out in,
Hmm.
you visited. This is in Mobile?
I think so.
No, Hornick, Iowa, in the corner of Mobile Blacktop.
Yeah, there's three small towns, and they're all about 15 miles or so from each other. So that
Oh,
all consider were all made up Gatlin. They all each had different kind of pieces they used.
this house looks pretty much the same except for the exterior change with the colors and they updated it, but the frame is obviously the same. And this is the house in the film Children of the Corn where Bert and Linda Hamilton's character find the kids like hanging out. And I don't remember if it was their house or they were just in there, but
I think it was the two little kids' house.
okay, yeah, the parents, that's where they lived. And you were at this set. Was somebody at this film location? Was somebody living here when you came?
The first time, yes, and they were actually working on the house, and I was kind of chicken. I was like, I don't want to bother him, so I just took some exterior shots. And sometimes you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't. I'm a little bit more cautionary. The
Yeah,
second time, I think it
you don't
was,
want to disappear.
yeah, I think it was not quite boarded up, but nobody was there, and so took some more pictures kind of around the house and did that. Now the interiors were shot somewhere up in Sioux City, Iowa, somewhere completely different.
Oh, really?
And actually, 95% of this was shot in Iowa, but some shots were in California, in Santa
Oh,
Clarita.
oh, wow. I gotta find which ones. The because this is like the location takes place in Nebraska, the setting, which is the greatest state in the union, some say.
Oh, maybe.
Right. But the what's cool is the in Whiting, Iowa, on Whittier Street is the shot of the garage, and it's still there when you at least when you were there. It's like half the size. It looks like it deteriorated and kind of fell apart, but you can still see the signage out there. Like they have this town hasn't changed a lot in 40 years.
Not much. The diner burned down. So the
Oh,
diner that you go to a couple times, but when Isaac comes up to the window, so that's why you see me in my Isaac hat. The reverse shots, the
I
buildings
love it.
are
I was going to bring that up, the Isaac hat. Maybe one of the creepiest shots ever because I still don't know, was Isaac an actual child, the actor, or did he was he a man that had
I
the
think he
condition?
was a young adult by that point, if I remember that. So, and I've met a couple times at different conventions, and Malachi, I can't remember his real name right now, so was super nice. And
Were they
actually,
nice?
I actually wrote the article for Horror Solid Grounds for Horror Hound on Children of the Corn, and so they signed that for me, which was nice.
That's pretty amazing. Was this a fun scouting location for you to embark on, Children of the Corn?
Yeah, so some parts were a little bit there. There was a website at the time that identified a lot of the sites, but then you know me, I try to find every single piece, and so some people, my friend actually, I couldn't find some of the silos where they're running at the end, and my friend that was with me
Oh,
during one of the trips just happened to spot them, and so we kind of zipped around, kind of where they're running. But obviously, movie magic, they run one block and they run, they are they end up in a completely different town on the reverse shot. The
oh
church,
yeah.
for example, actually I didn't visit the actual church. That's in a completely different town. So every time they leave the church, it's always kind of their point of view. You see a door open. That's like a firefighter station now or something like that. There was no church ever there.
Oh.
They just put up a little porch, and when they would leave, they were in a completely different town than the church.
Yeah, I think the Rocky montage where he's running is like the most famous example of that. If you mapped out in Rocky 1 where he's doing the montage of him training, it was like a 21-mile jog he went on in like a half an hour.